guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jay.
Thanks for coming back, Jay. So what we wanted to talk about this week, we're probably going to keep a fairly consistent run of this going, every few episodes. Another superhero versus or a matchup, if you want to call it that. So this week we decided to go with one that's been done quite a few times, but we wanted to do, our own take on it. It's a Moon Knight and Batman.
So basically what we have is the DC Batman versus Marvel's Moon Knight, which they're similar counterparts. Both kind of have gone through pretty traumatic backgrounds and everything. You have Batman who, as you all know, was orphaned as a young child, was trained by the League of Assassins. And he didn't become Batman until he was 30 years old. So in the time prior, he was a master of a bunch of martial arts. Then you got on the other end of the spectrum, you got Moon Knight, who's basically the king of come at me, bro. He's got 5 different personalities that all kind of fight for the top of the chain within controlling him. He's also an avatar for the Egyptian god Khonshu.
Yeah, so to dive a little bit into Moon Knight's backstory, he's left for dead, brought into the Temple of Khonshu, and like you said, he becomes the sort of totem for the god that originally gave him the powers of the moon, the powers of the Egyptian god Khonshu, and again came back to America as the Fist of Khonshu. So for this battle, we previously spoke about this. We're gonna sort of take the superpower aspect of it away. Not that Batman couldn't handle it, but as of late in any Moon Knight comics, his moon-esque powers are not necessarily intact the way they used to be. So I think that would make it a little bit more of an even playing field for the two of them.
Yeah, so pretty much you got Batman on one side. He's a master of 127 different kind of fighting styles, mainly ninjutsu, Krav Maga, boxing, judo, and Aikido. On the other end, you have Moon Knight, a.k.a. Mark Spector. He was a mercenary. He was a Marine. He was also a world champion boxer. So, both of these guys definitely have the martial arts pedigree to stand toe-to-toe against each other and kind of just knuckle it out and see who would come out on top. And that's something that we really wanted to talk about, go into who we think would win, and basically just kind of compare the two. And like Steve said, people have done it before, but we wanted to put our take on it.
So we were thinking we could try to break this down a little bit into a couple different categories to divide them up. So let's start with one. If we're talking about a straight hand-to-hand fight, who would you pick in this situation?
So personally, again, Mark, like you said, you got 127 types of martial arts that Batman's learned, which, Christ, I don't know, what age we're picking Batman at, but regardless, that is a feat in and of itself. It's one of those things where like I can, most people, when you look at like, karate or jiu-jitsu or whatever, you're going to master it in, 10-ish years if you, consistently go multiple times a week. But it's one of those things where, like you said, he was trained by the League of Assassins. So he was probably trained in like 9 or 10 different types of martial arts at once. And God.
No, I was going to say he mastered all of them by the age of 30. So basically when he left Gotham around the age of 18 to about the age of 28 or 29 is the time frame that he mastered all of them.
So it took him 12 years to master 127 different martial arts.
Yep, something like that.
That also plays into Batman's intelligence, that he is that smart that he can master that.
Yeah.
And obviously his athleticism, but
yeah,
I don't think anybody ever questions Batman's athleticism, considering the fact the man fights Bane on a regular basis and kind of holds his own to get minus the one time he broke his back.
Yeah, on top of that, not only has he fought Bane, he's fought Darkseid, Lobo, he's fights Deathstroke regularly. Like, he has such a wide variety of villain in his rogues that he's gone up against that he also has a PhD in criminology, and that kind of plays into it too, because it allows him to think of how would a actual like someone either robbing a bank or one of his villains, it kind of lets him be able to tap into what their mindset might be to kind of help prep for that kind of a fight.
But Moon Knight's no slouch himself when it comes to any of this stuff as well. Moon Knight has, from the little bit of research I've done, minus him, he's a master of 10 different martial arts in his own right, which is not small by any means. He also was formerly a Marine, a CIA operative.
Yeah, and he was a world-class boxer. He learned whatever martial arts they teach in the Marines and the military. He's a master in karate, sambo, Muay Thai, Aikido. I mean, like you said, he's definitely no slouch. Like, he knows his stuff too.
So this hand-to-hand fight with no weapons, just fist, not even the brass knuckles both of them have a tendency to use. Unfortunately, I think I got to give it to Batman.
So me personally, I mean, if we're going with just straight up hand-to-hand combat, I feel like it would be a slight advantage to Batman as well, mainly because Moon Knight is a much more aggressive foe. He's going to come at you. He doesn't really block attacks. He waits for you to hit and counter, to where Batman would pick up on this eventually and maybe try to fight from either a distance or whatever the case be. But as far as Moon Knight, I mean, he's super, super durable because he has, the power of the moon god. So he can take those blows over and over again. And obviously being in the military, I'm sure that he's been through situations in the comics where he may have been tortured or held captive by another military, something along those lines. That would be just a tough situation for anybody to go through as well.
So I don't know. I'm going to have to be the outlier in this scenario. And not just because I like to rock the boat, but if it's just a hand-to-hand combat with no other, tools involved, just their fists, I might have to give it to Moon Knight because he does have the multiple personalities, or schizophrenia, depending on, what context you're reading. And that would change his fighting style up based on the needs of the fight. So Batman does have a lot of, experience and training, but I don't know if he's necessarily prepared for somebody that isn't really even prepared for themselves. To be 100% honest with you, he doesn't really go into it with a plan. He just kind of goes in, takes his blows, and gives them right back. And that's something that Batman hasn't necessarily come into contact with.
Yes, he has, though. If you're thinking about it, he fights the Joker on a regular basis, who has no plan. His entire goal in life is just to cause chaos. He doesn't plan out how he's going to do it necessarily. He's got an overall end goal, but there's a lot of wiggle room in the middle for Joker to just decide how he's going to do it.
Sure, no, and I completely agree with you in regards to like dealing with a villain or an entire plot of an episode or a movie or something along those lines. But I mean, I'm just referring strictly to a stand-up, or I mean, I guess take it to the ground for jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga and various other styles of martial arts. But like, it's just a fight. I don't know where Moon Knight would necessarily lead the fight to. I think if Batman can handle it, in a lengthy process, the longer the fight lasts, the more Batman's going to be able to plan out his escape or his eventual, incapacitation of Moon Knight. But I think if Moon Knight can handle it in the first few minutes, it's going to be, a one and done for him. And again, that's not discounting Batman at all. But again, I've got to sort of rock the boat a little bit.
Nah, I mean, honestly, Steve, to talk to your point, I think it would depend on which personality came out. Because if it's Batman versus, say, Mark Spector, he may approach that fight more the way he would against like a Deathstroke. Because obviously Deathstroke was a mercenary. He was in the military. He has a very similar background. Then you have, Stephen Grant personality, where he was kind of like the Playboy millionaire, where he made all his money in the stocks. Same thing with Bruce Wayne. Like, Bruce Wayne obviously inherited his fortune, but you have the John Lockley personality, where he's street smart, to where Batman might be able to use that criminology background to kind of break down what might he do next. But like you said, Moon Knight could be super unpredictable and not even know which personality is going to come out. So Batman may be prepping and kind of gearing the fight towards one style, and then all of a sudden that switch flips, and now all of a sudden Batman has to change it up on the fly.
And that's exactly, my point. And I'm not saying that Batman is at a disadvantage for that because, again, he is a master of preparation, a master of tactic. So he would be able to adjust as well. But I just think as far as fighting, and I don't want to say it because he's not technically doing it, but he's fighting more than one person at once. And while it may not be physically more than one person, it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually more than one person.
Oh, no, yeah, that's where I'm saying. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm saying Batman, but not by like a long shot. Like I don't want to feel like I'm discrediting Moon Knight at all either, because I mean, both of these guys are way, way, way over capable of handling each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, in the long run, we're probably, I'm going to give it to Batman anyway, but I'm not going to, throw my boy Moon Knight straight under the bus. He can definitely hold his own.
Well, we can get into a next talking point. We can get into the little gadgets they use or anything they normally carry on them, which at this point, when it comes down to, because they're both very similar in this, they both have like somewhat of weapons. Batman uses his utility belt. Moon Knight has something similar to that. I got to give that to Moon Knight. Moon Knight has the better weapons he keeps on him, with being made of certain ones being made of vibranium and also
Adamantium.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. He's, like you said previously, they both usually use some sort of brass knuckle. So it's Moon Knight has his cesti, which are the gloves that are covered in the spikes. He has his crescent darts, gas darts, explosive darts, adamantium darts. So he has a whole list of things that I'm not saying Batman doesn't necessarily have the ability to obtain, but just due to the fact that it's the DC universe versus the Marvel universe, adamantium doesn't exist. Vibranium doesn't exist. So these are things that Batman has never come into contact with before.
And if Batman throws a batarang and Moon Knight throws a crescent dart, the crescent dart's winning that. Crescent dart's taking that batarang straight in half.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this one, honestly, I give Moon Knight the check mark too. I mean, yeah, Batman definitely has probably more gadgets than Moon Knight has, but just the sheer density and what they're actually made out of kind of gives Moon Knight the edge. Moon Knight also has his truncheon, which is like a club, and then he also has, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but he has the Ankh, which is the moon-shaped crest on his chest that actually lights up in the face of any imminent danger. And that kind of, I think, plays into some of the powers that he has. But Batman, I mean, yeah, he's got the Batarang, but he's also got smoke pellets. He's got the remote Batmobile, which also have gadgets. The fact that he was trained by the League of Assassins, he could take out all the lights. And while Moon Knight definitely has some night vision, Batman can literally, it's built into his mask. And that's his realm at that point. He's fighting in the dark. And from there, I mean, he's got smoke pellets, he's got the explosive gel, so it may not be enough to take down Moon Knight, but it may be enough to disorient him. But just in terms of the overall gadgets itself, I got to go with Moon Knight.
Yeah. Also, there's one other thing Moon Knight does that Batman does not. Moon Knight is not opposed to guns by any means and using them. Yep, and he's a master with them all.
Absolutely. And he's again, we'll get into this later, but he's not opposed to killing. And that's Batman's strong moral code that sort of advises him against that. But again, we'll touch base on that later.
Right. And I mean, if you're just going to look at the suits as well, like you said, he does use guns. I mean, Batman's suit is bulletproof to an extent, mainly the torso and his back and his helmet or his cowl. Basically, that leaves his legs very vulnerable. He's also fire resistant and electricity proof. So it's fire resistant, which doesn't mean it's fireproof. So if, Moon Knight lights Batman on fire, he could survive for a little bit, but eventually it's going to start taking effect, over the longer that he is on fire. Both of them kind of use suits made out of a reinforced Kevlar. But obviously Batman has slits in it to be more agile, more mobile, to where if Moon Knight decides to use his brass knuckles with knives on them, they could actually puncture those weak points and cause bet damage because Batman is human.
Definitely. So I think the next topic we should sort of touch over is strength. So not necessarily the physical strengths, but their strengths as both fighters and, heroes, anti-heroes, whatever you want to classify Moon Knight as.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as Batman, when it comes to like his strengths, I mean, one of his biggest virtues is his ability to plan, change on the fly, and have patience. To where Moon Knight is a little bit the opposite. He's more of a gung ho, in your face. I'm going to keep pushing the fight. Moon Knight's also more durable of a person. I mean, Batman's come into contact with, he fights Deathstroke, he's fought Superman, he's fought Lobo, he's fought Darkseid. Like, as a human, that's going to leave a lot of miles on your body over the years, to where Moon Knight had a healing ability for a lot of the time. So he may not be as beat up at the point when them two would fight each other.
And I mean, I'd like to point out that Bane literally broke his back. Straight up broke it. That's definitely not an easy comeback.
No, not at all.
But this is also Batman we're talking about here, who he doesn't quit. Like, the man has no quit. He doesn't know when to stop.
His tenacity is unrivaled.
And
Absolutely.
Depending on what portion and what timeline around this is, like, if for some unknown reason this is like just after Jason Todd's death and before he gets Tim Drake, Batman is on a whole nother level where he is. I'm impressed he didn't kill somebody at that point.
Well, he does fit that persona of rich and nuts. 110%. Just crazy as shit. And I mean, you could say batshit crazy. Sorry, that was a terrible pun. Don't kick me off this podcast, please. But so in regards to their strengths, like you said, Batman, he's got that tenacity, the drive, the will to push forward. I mean, he is super strong. I mean, you could almost say superhuman strong to an extent, just due to the fact that he's consistently trained his body on a daily basis for the past God knows how long, to remain in peak physical condition. So, I mean, again, you're going to look at, we'll just say, for example, the bench press. It's been said that Batman canon could bench press about 1,000 pounds, whereas Moon Knight's somewhere around 450. I'm not saying that's the only factor in it, but that definitely shows you that even as a totem of a god, you have limitations. And I'm not saying Batman doesn't, but he's definitely pushed himself beyond that, mental and physical brick wall that most people have.
Yeah, I mean, he leg presses is like a metric ton. In some comic stories, like, he can slow down or stop cars just by kind of like grabbing them. So, I mean, that's just something where I feel like in hand-to-hand combat, like, that strength Batman could incorporate into his 127 different kind of styles, to where Moon Knight, he knows 20 or 30 different styles. But, I mean, sheer strength is something sometimes that, especially when there's technique behind it, it's hard to overcome.
Oh, most definitely. So, I mean, I think it's a fairly clear cut. I could be wrong. I want to give it to Batman as far as strengths goes. You got to look at his past experiences with, again, the larger group of the Rogues Gallery of Villains. Like you said, he's got Deathstroke, he's got Superman. I mean, and Superman's not even a villain. But Superman and Batman have gone toe to toe, and I'm not saying it's a fair fight, but it's definitely Batman put himself on that level. He made himself readily available to get the shit beat out of him, and he kept on kicking.
But at that point, or not Superman, Batman relies on the fact that Superman is a good human being and will not actually try to kill him, and Batman's not.
You're right.
Because if Superman really wanted to at that point, Superman could throw a mountain at him from like 2 miles away with utter ease, and it's just Batman's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
Batman's taking a dirt nap.
There's been comic stories, honestly, where Batman's even has the reflexes to be able to catch an arrow shot by Green Arrow, who's one of the best marksmen in the DC universe. So, I mean, I know Moon Knight definitely too. Like, both of them are fast enough to where they've dodged shots out of a gun, like they've dodged bullets. So, I mean, I really think it's close. Like this, and no matter what category we go to, like this is super closely contested.
So,
absolutely.
What are the weaknesses we're looking at here?
All right. So, I mean, Mark, you wanna touch on some of Moon Knight's weaknesses?
Moon Knight's got one weakness I've seen ever.
So,
and it's his mental disorder and his brain damage. That's really about it.
Yeah, I mean, Moon Knight, he's just very super unpredictable, so that could kind of be a benefit for him against Batman, but could be a weakness to him and himself, depending on which personality decides to take over. I know I've seen a couple storylines where he's been crippled, and I know for the past decade in the comics, he hasn't had his moon capabilities, so he hasn't been able to have a healing factor and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I just think the biggest thing would be the mental illness of it, because say he's fighting Batman and he's fighting with Mark Spector in charge. I mean, Stephen Grant could take right over, who's a millionaire who may not know what the other ones know if they are not able to communicate with each other, because there's schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder. And I know in extreme cases, one personality doesn't remember what the other personalities do. So if that's the case and Stephen Grant takes over, then it's just Batman versus a civilian. And I mean, at that point, he's going to get his ass whipped.
Absolutely. He won't actually kill him. He'll just, make a little hurt in his bank account. But yeah, I think we've all pretty much decided and, in agreement with strengths, we're probably going to give that one to Batman.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go now to the opposite side of the spectrum there with the weaknesses, obviously, Batman also suffers from some mental illnesses. He's got survivor's guilt. He's got PTSD. While his suit is bulletproof, it's pretty vulnerable around the legs. So if Moon Knight can shoot him in the leg or attack his legs, they're more vulnerable, kind of take away some of that agility, take away some of that speed. And I mean, it could be, it's not uncommon to see villains kind of use Batman's parents against him. Scarecrow's a big component of using this with his fear gas. Joker on multiple occasions has dug up their graves and all that. I know
elementary
Bane.
School, parent-teacher conferences. Yes, I know. Terrible. But no, I think that is a huge factor in it. I don't necessarily want to classify it as PTSD, but you could. I mean, it's a traumatic experience, and that really sort of set his life in the motion that it's going now.
Right, and I think Batman's biggest weakness is not knowing when to quit. So with somebody like Moon Knight, who is a very aggressive style of fighting, and especially with the tools that he has, that stubbornness could kind of come back to bite Batman, to where with Moon Knight, like, he's just going to let Batman punch him in the face and punch him in the face and punch him in the face and then counter it eventually.
Yeah. What about you, Jay? What do you think as far as weaknesses on Batman's end?
I feel like Mark kind of hit them all, like with just the mental disorders. I don't know. I feel like confidence might not also help Batman a little bit going into most things, because he's always confident going in that he is always the most prepared for the fight. And Moon Knight, I don't know how to put this into the right words. Spontaneousness, I guess, would be the best way to put it, because he's kind of just all over the place. Would definitely throw Batman for a loop. Also, the fact Batman won't try to kill him. Well, he'll hurt him, but he won't kill him. Definitely is not going to be definitely not going to play into his favor, because Moon Knight has no problem taking Batman's face off.
Absolutely. I mean, in that regard, I may be an outlier. I could be wrong, but I'm probably going to give weaknesses. And I would say, as far as this category goes, winning would be a good thing. Winning would be Moon Knight, in my opinion, because he just, again, personally, I think he has a little bit less weaknesses than Batman does, in regards to it only being his mental illnesses.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to where Moon Knight does have weaknesses, I feel like Batman's could be more detrimental when you're going up against an opponent and play a bigger role in giving Moon Knight that upper hand.
What about you, Jay? Where do you fall?
I think I'm going to have to agree with both of you, unfortunately, and give the weaknesses to Moon Knight's has less at this point.
So far, we've got our hand-to-hand combat, which has gone to Batman, so that's 1 point for him. Technology and gadgets has gone to Moon Knight, so they're 1-1. Strengths has gone to Batman, and then weaknesses, the upper hand would be given to Moon Knight as well. So, I mean, we're at 2-2 for each. Let's give them, one last category to sort of even this out and see where all the chips fall.
Yeah, I mean, as a last category, I would just go overall experience. I mean, like we've been talking about, Batman's had a plethora of fights, years of experience. He knows all the different things. He's fought Ra's al Ghul in the League of Assassins. He's fought with the Court of Owls. He's fought against Deathstroke and his legions of mercenaries. Lobo, who's pretty much immortal. Darkseid and his whole army. I mean, he's fought against the Legion of Doom. You name it, Batman kind of has done it, to where, for me, with Moon Knight, I feel like he's definitely fought some big time names. I mean, he's agile enough, quiet enough to sneak up on the likes of Daredevil, Venom, Spider-Man even. He's fought with Deadpool on countless occasions and defeated Deadpool. Like, there's definitely big names, but I feel like, me personally, Batman's experience is going to be one of the biggest factors playing into the outcome of this fight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Not, again, like you said, not to discount anything Moon Knight has done, but Batman has literally fought gods, whether it be someone who perceives himself as a god like Darkseid and has that sort of celestial power, or, I mean, Superman, who is a person from another planet with the ability to literally destroy our planet and just chose not to.
But you can't take away from Moon Knight. I understand all the Batman's ones, but Moon Knight has fought the likes of Taskmaster in his own relative universe, Deadpool, Daredevil, Bullseye, the Punisher. He's not slacking on his own right of people.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm not taking.
He's even fought the X-Men.
Are we talking Deadpool X-Men or just the regular X-Men?
The regular X-Men. His entire job at that point was to watch Jean Grey, who was at this point, I believe it was prior to being the Phoenix, which still is a strong mutant to fight.
Oh, absolutely. That is something we'll have to look into. She's another obscure character we can check into later for maybe another episode.
So when we're taking in experience of fighters, where are we sitting here, Mark?
So for me personally, I mean, just with the I feel like they're pretty even. I mean, like you said, going in that final one, they were 4-4. But I think out of 100 fights between the two of them, I think Batman would take 60 of them. So I'd say it's probably 60-40 in favor of Batman for me personally.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to fall somewhere around there. I don't know if I'd go necessarily 60-40, but I'm going to give Batman the upper hand, at maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 times, just due to the fact that he is a master tactician. And again, if he has any knowledge of the multiple personalities or schizophrenia, that's going to give him an even greater upper hand in the long run. So, he's one of those people that just, like you said, he doesn't quit. His tenacity, his drive, his will to continue on and not let the fight go against him that's going to probably be the driving factor in his ability to win this. And like you said, we had touched base on a lot of his, I don't necessarily want to call them all foes because some of them aren't, but his plethora and resume of people that he's fought previously, I got to give that upper hand to Batman. So he's going to be my overall winner. But what about you, Jay? What are you thinking?
I'm going to agree with both of you at this point. I would take Batman. Maybe not as much as you or Mark. I would think it might be a little closer, but I still think Batman overall takes it over half the times. It's just it's hard to compete with. The man is prepared for anything. And he's honestly, they say he might be somewhat of a better than normal human, but he's still just human.
Yeah, I mean, again,
the man can get bones broken. The man can die. The man, if he gets shot, it hurts a lot, and he's not getting up quickly.
Sure, he's. I mean, he's one of those people. Like in the Justice League, there was the episode where he, I forget exactly who it was, but one of the villains found Batman's contingency plans for all of the Justice League characters. So, Batman's fully prepared to kill all of his friends.
Imagine what he'll do to his enemies.
Exactly. He's ready at all times.
Yeah, no, it was Vandal Savage in the animated movie Doom. And the one line I actually love from that, not to go off topic, is yes, he has contingencies for if everybody falls out of line. But at the end, Wonder Woman's like, well, you don't have a file on yourself. And he's like, well, why do you think I created the Justice League? It's like, if I'm the one that goes rogue, y'all got to fuck me up. Absolutely.
And he also says, they mentioned that they don't have a file on him. And he's like, well, you're stupid for not doing so. Right. Sorry, I'd be prepared, Again, he makes the point, Superman is Superman. He is a being from another universe or another world. He could destroy the entire Earth without even thinking about it, and no one could stop him except Batman. I mean, they would make it a hell of a fight, but Batman's the one that's ready to, put him down if need be.
Right. And I mean, I'm going to put an asterisk against Batman's victory here because obviously, like we said at the beginning, Moon Knight doesn't have his moon powers. With his moon powers, I think it heavily goes the other way. And Moon Knight will just take Batman out because, like you said, Jay, if he can inflict any kind of wounds or damage, Batman's going to need time to heal, and he's not afraid to kill. So if he can incapacitate Batman to that point, he wouldn't hesitate to put a bullet in his mouth and just end it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're definitely all in agreement there. I'll definitely give Batman the win, asterisk included. So anything else from you guys?
No, that's it for me. That's all I can really think of.
No,
Jay?
I'm good too.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Something Super Podcast. Again, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. All right. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jay.
Thanks again.